Hello, let us see the relationship set among entity sets. Let us consider an entity set denoted by E1 which consists of three different entity denoted by E1, E2 and E3, and assume that there is another entity set E2 whose element are denoted by D1 and D2. So I can draw this in this way also. Suppose this is my E1 entity set and this is the E1 entity, this is E2 entity and this is E3 entity, and there is my E2 entity set and the element are D1 entity and D2 entity. Now we will be defining the relationship among this entity set E1 and the entity set E2. Suppose it is given that E1 entity somehow related with the D1 entity and E2 entity is related with D2 entity, and it is also given that again E1 is related with D2 entity. So let us denote this first data first association of entity E1 and D1 by R1, this one by R2 and this by R3. So we can think of a relationship R that exists between E1 and E2 which contains three elements R1, R2 and R3, where R1 is the association between E1 and D1, where R2 is association between E2 and D2, and R3 is the association between E1 and D2. Now this R2 is called the relationship set. Why? Because it is holding the relationship between the entity set E1 and the entity set E2. So I can write R12 in this way also. It contains R1, R2, R3. So this is essentially a set, and where R1 is E1 comma D1, E2 comma D2 and E1 comma D1. Now here we need to note that this is, and this is, that is this one and this one, they are ordered tuple. Okay, now we can also say that the relationship set R12 is collection of ordered tuple. Now this is same as the relationship in the mathematics. So let us find the Cartesian product of E1 entity set and E2 entity set, that is E1, E2, E3 and D1, D2. Now if we perform the Cartesian product, the result will be a set containing ordered tuple, that is E1, D1, E2, D1, E3, D1, then E1, D2, E2, D2, E3, D2. Now we can see that E1, D1, this E1, D1 correspond to R1, E2, D2, that is E2, D2 correspond to R2, and E1, this should be D2, and E1, D2, that is this one, this correspond to R3. That is, we can say that R12 and this is Cartesian product of E1 and E2. We can say that R12 is a subset of the Cartesian product of E1 and E2. So we can say that a relationship R between entity E1 and E2 is basically the subset of the Cartesian product of E1 and E2. Now in general case, if R is relation among n entity set, then R is a subset of E1, E2 dot 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 En. In our case, where the value of n was considered to be 2. So this is the meaning of the relationship set among the entity set. Thank you.